This is my ranking of historical FPS games I've played, based purely on my personal experience. Each game is placed from masterpiece down to trash, depending on how well it captures its time period, how satisfying the gunplay feels, and how memorable the overall experience is. Let's get straight into the list. Hell Let Loose is a very different kind of FPS where I have to slow down and actually think about teamwork instead of just running and shooting. Matches are built around communication, and if the squad is not talking or working together, things quickly become frustrating. I like how every role has a purpose, whether it's dropping ammo, reviving teammates, or leading the squad, and I found myself sticking with the medic because it kept me active in every fight. The battles can shift suddenly, where a strong push can turn into a complete loss in the final minutes. It can take time to reach the front line, and some matches feel quiet when no one communicates, but when a team actually works together, the experience stands out. Because of that, Hell Let Loose lands in the excellent tier. Battlefield 1 takes World War I and turns it into large-scale battles that feel intense and unpredictable from start to finish. The weapons feel heavier and slower compared to modern shooters, which makes every shot matter and forces me to be more careful in fights. Multiplayer stands out the most. I like how teamwork plays a big role. The single-player campaign is shorter, but focuses on different small stories from the war. The visuals also leave a strong impact, with muddy trenches, razrushid cities, and changing weather that affects how battles unfold. This is why Battlefield 1 belongs in the masterpiece tier. Verdun takes a slower and more punishing approach to World War I, where every step through the trenches feels risky and every shot can end things instantly. What stands out to me is how deadly the combat is, with one-shot kills and clunky weapons that make close encounters feel tense every time. When I'm pushing through tight trench paths or facing enemies at close range, the pressure really builds because there's no room for mistakes. The game also leans heavily on teamwork, and sticking with the squad makes a big difference compared to running alone, which usually ends badly. At the same time, it's hard to ignore the rough visuals, performance issues, and sometimes dull moments between the action, which hold it back from being more consistent. Still, those intense moments in combat manage to carry it into the great tier. War of Rights focuses heavily on realism and structure, which makes every match feel more like a coordinated battle than a typical shooter. I find that the experience depends a lot on teamwork because when players communicate and move together, the fights feel organized and meaningful, especially during line battles and volleys. The pacing is much slower, with careful reloading and positioning, so I have to think before acting instead of rushing in. The chain of command system also stands out, where leadership can shape how the entire match plays out, making good coordination really rewarding. At the same time, this slower style means there can be downtime between fights, and not everyone will like that pace. Performance and limited content can also hold it back a bit, but when everything works together, the atmosphere is strong and unique. It finds its place in the great tier. Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway focuses more on storytelling and squad tactics than fast action, and that makes it feel different from most shooters. I like how the game shows the mental pressure of war through its characters, especially during Operation Market Garden, where things slowly start to fall apart. In gameplay, I have to think carefully, using cover and directing squads to suppress enemies while I flank, instead of just rushing forward. The destructible cover adds another layer, since no position feels completely safe, and I have to keep adjusting during fights. There are moments where the AI doesn't behave properly, which can break the flow, and some technical issues are noticeable, but the core experience still works well. The mix of tactical gameplay and a strong emotional story helps it stand out among World War II shooters, and it lands in the excellent tier. Red Orchestra 2 Heroes of Stalingrad focuses almost entirely on multiplayer, where every match feels tense because a single bullet can end everything instantly. I have to move carefully, use cover properly, and rely on iron sights for every shot, which makes each kill feel earned instead of easy. The large maps and 6-4 player battles create a constant sense of danger, where enemies can be hiding anywhere and staying alive becomes the main challenge. I like how teamwork and roles actually matter, especially with commanders calling in support or coordinating pushes. The attention to detail also stands out, from weapon handling to the way suppression affects vision during fights. The single player doesn't hold up due to weak AI, but the multiplayer experience carries the game strongly. All of this comes together to place it in the masterpiece tier. Isonzo takes World War I and mixes it with more modern shooter ideas, which makes it easier to jump into compared to more realistic games. I noticed the faster pace right away, with abilities like stamina boosts, perks, and support actions that keep the action moving instead of slowing it down. The large battles still feel chaotic, especially when pushing uphill through gunfire, gas, and explosions with a full team. I like how different classes bring small but useful roles, like calling in air support or building defenses, which adds some strategy without making things too complex. At the same time, it doesn't always feel fully grounded in its historical setting, since the gameplay leans more toward arcade-style shooting. Even with that, the accessibility and constant action make it easy to keep playing, and it ends up in the excellent tier. Call of Duty World at War brings World War II back with a darker and more brutal tone, especially in the Pacific and Eastern Front missions. I notice how intense the combat feels, with enemies attacking aggressively and battles often happening at close range, which keeps the pressure high. The campaign moves through major moments of the war, mixing large-scale fights with different mission types that keep things from feeling repetitive. Multiplayer builds on what the series already does well, with solid progression, vehicles, and modes that keep matches engaging. One thing I really like is the extra content, especially the co-op campaign and the zombies mode, which adds a completely different kind of experience. Even though the story jumps around a bit, the action and variety make it easy to keep going back. That level of content and intensity places it in the masterpiece tier. At the end of the day, these rankings come down to how each game felt to play and the impression it left behind. Your list might look different, but this is where they stand for me. Thanks for watching.